Commander Lisa Garrett stood in the corner of the officers' club at Naval Base Coronado, holding a glass of water she hadn't touched. The room was filled with dress uniforms, loud conversation, and the kind of backslapping camaraderie that came with military reunions. She didn't want to be here, but her presence had been requested. So here she stood, 38 years old, wearing her navy dress whites, trying to be invisible. It wasn't working. "Excuse me, miss?" A voice cut through the noise. Lisa turned to see a young lieutenant commander she didn't recognize. He had the confident swagger of someone who had never been told no. "I think you might be in the wrong room. This is a SEAL reunion event. Spouses and guests are meeting in the Pacific room next door." Lisa took a slow breath. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. "I'm in the right room, Commander, but thank you for your concern." The officer's smile faltered. "This is a closed event, SEALs and authorized personnel only." "I'm aware." Before the conversation could continue, a booming voice filled the room. "Attention, General Marcus Wade entering." The room shifted to attention. Lisa set down her water glass and stood straight, eyes forward. Through the crowd, she saw him, General Marcus Wade, newly appointed commander of Naval Special Warfare Command. He was tall, barrel-chested, in his late 50s with silver hair cut military sharp. He walked into the room like he owned it, because in a sense he did. Lisa had heard about Wade. He was old-school military, a former Marine who had transferred to Navy Special Operations oversight. He had a reputation for being hard, fair, and traditional, very traditional. "At ease, gentlemen," Wade called out, and the room relaxed. "Let me start by saying it's an honor to be here among the finest warriors this nation has ever produced. Navy SEALs represent the tip of the spear, the very best of the best." Lisa listened as Wade gave his speech. It was standard stuff. Honor, courage, commitment, the SEAL ethos, the brotherhood of warriors. She had heard it all before, lived it all before. But something about the way Wade spoke made it clear that his vision of the teams was stuck somewhere in the 1990s. After the speech, Wade worked the room, shaking hands, telling stories. Lisa stayed in her corner, hopping to avoid interaction. She was here to pay respects to fallen teammates, not to make small talk with a new general who didn't know her. But fate had other plans. Wade made his way around the room and eventually noticed her. His eyes narrowed slightly as he approached. The young lieutenant commander from earlier followed behind him, along with several other officers. "Good evening," Wade said, extending his hand. "I don't believe we've met, General Marcus Wade." Lisa shook his hand firmly. "Commander Lisa Garrett, sir." "Commander," Wade acknowledged. "What's your specialty?" "I'm a trauma surgeon, sir, Navy Medical Corps." Wade nodded, but Lisa could see the calculation in his eyes. He was trying to figure out why a doctor was at a SEAL reunion. "And you're here because?" "I was invited, sir." The lieutenant commander from earlier leaned in and whispered something to Wade. The general's expression shifted slightly, not quite dismissive, but close. "Commander Garrett, I appreciate your service in the medical field, but I need to be direct with you. This event is specifically for members of the SEAL teams. We have strict protocols about attendance. It's about maintaining the integrity of the Brotherhood." He gestured around the room. "These men have been through hell together. They've earned the right to gather without outside observers." Lisa felt heat rising in her chest, but kept her voice level. "With respect, sir, I'm not an outside observer." "Are you a SEAL?" Wade asked, his tone making it clear he already knew the answer. "Not officially, no, sir." "Then I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave. This event is for SEALs only, I'm sure you understand." Wade's voice wasn't cruel, but it was final. He had made his decision. Several people nearby had stopped their conversations to watch. Lisa could feel their eyes on her. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked smug, like this confirmed something they'd been thinking. "General Wade," Lisa said carefully, "I was personally invited by Master Chief Danny Riggs. I have every right to be here." Wade's expression hardened. "Commander, I don't know what your relationship is with Master Chief Riggs, but that doesn't change the protocols. This is a SEAL reunion. If you're not a SEAL, you don't belong here. So the years I spent in combat zones with SEAL teams don't matter. I'm sure your medical support was appreciated, but that's not the same thing." Wade's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Every support personnel who ever helped the teams could claim the same thing. We'd have thousands of people at these events. The line has to be drawn somewhere." Lisa looked around the room, some of the faces she recognized from deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq. Men she had treated, operated on, saved, men she had fought beside. They were watching this confrontation, but none of them were stepping in. None of them were speaking up for her. She felt a familiar loneliness settle in her chest. It was the same feeling she'd had countless times over her career. Being the only woman in the room, being questioned, being dismissed. "General Wade," she said quietly, "I understand your position, but I think you should know something before you make this mistake." Wade's eyebrows rose. "Mistake? Commander, I don't respond well to threats or dramatic statements. This isn't about you personally. It's about maintaining standards and traditions." Lisa reached into her jacket pocket. Wade tensed slightly and she saw two of the officers nearby shift their weight. She almost laughed. What did they think she was going to pull out? A weapon at a formal military event. What she pulled out was a small leather case. She opened it carefully and held it up so Wade could see. Inside was a trident pin. The SEAL trident, the bird and anchor and pistol and trident that every Navy SEAL earned upon graduation from Bud-S training. But this one was different. It was older, worn, with a patina that came from years of wear. And attached to it was a small plaque with an engraving. Wade leaned forward to read it, and Lisa watched the color drain from his face. The engraving read, "To Doc Garrett, who fought like a SEAL, bled like a SEAL, and saved more SEALs than we can count. You earned this. SEAL Team 3, Ramadi, 2006. Below that were signatures, dozens of them. SEALs who had served with her, fought with her, survived because of her. Wade looked up from the trident to Lisa's face. For the first time since entering the room, he appeared uncertain. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "They gave it to me, sir, after our third deployment together, after I pulled 7 wounded SEALs out of a firefight while taking shrapnel myself, after I performed surgery in a bombed-out building while under enemy fire, after I earned the right to wear it." The room had gone completely silent. Every conversation had stopped. Every eye was on them. Wade's jaw tightened. "Commander, I don't care what kind of honorary recognition you received. The SEAL Trident is earned through Bud-S training. It's not given out as a participation trophy." Lisa felt something snap inside her. She had been patient, she had been respectful, but there was a limit. "You're absolutely right, General," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "The Trident is earned through hell, through pain and blood and sacrifice, through proving yourself when everyone says you can't, through refusing to quit when quitting would be easier." She paused. "So let me ask you something. When was the last time you were in combat, sir?" Wade's face flushed red. "That's inappropriate, Commander." "Is it? Because I spent 7 years attached to SEAL teams in combat zones. 7 years. I have 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, and a Navy Cross. I've been shot, blown up, and left for dead. I've held dying men in my arms and fought to save them. I've made the same sacrifices, taken the same risks, and earned the same respect as the men in this room." Lisa's voice didn't rise, but it carried. "So when you stand there and tell me I don't belong, what you're really saying is that none of that matters because I'm a woman." "This has nothing to do with gender," Wade said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Doesn't it?" Lisa looked around the room. "How many of you served with me? Ramadi, Helmand Province, Fallujah." Slowly, hands started to rise. 5 men, then 10, then 15. Over a third of the room had their hands up. Lisa looked back at Wade. "These men know what I did. They know what I sacrificed, and they invited me here because in their eyes I earned my place among them." Wade stood there, trapped between his traditional views and the undeniable truth standing before him. And Lisa wasn't done yet. The tension in the officers' club was thick enough to cut with a knife. General Wade stood frozen, his face flushed, clearly struggling with what to say next. Lisa held her ground, the trident still in her hand, its weight heavier than the metal itself. Before Wade could respond, a voice called out from across the room. "General Wade, if I may." An older man pushed through the crowd. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and a weathered face that spoke of decades in the sun and wind. He wore his dress whites with the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove. On his chest was a trident pin, along with enough ribbons and medals to fill a display case. Master Chief Danny Riggs, retired, the man who had invited Lisa to this reunion. "Master Chief Riggs," Wade said, clearly relieved at the interruption. "I was just explaining the protocols." "I heard," Riggs cut him off, And with respect, sir, you're wrong. Wade's expression hardened. Excuse me. You're wrong about Commander Garrett. You're wrong about why she's here, and you're wrong about what she's earned. Riggs moved to stand beside Lisa. But you don't know that because you don't know the story, so maybe before you kick out one of the bravest people I've ever served with, you should hear it. Wade looked around the room. Every eye was on him. He could push back, assert his authority, and remove both Lisa and Riggs from the event. But that would make him look like a tyrant, or he could listen, which would mean backing down from his position. He chose to listen. "Make it brief, Master Chief," Wade said tightly. Riggs nodded and turned to address the room. November 2006. Ramadi, Iraq. Some of you were there. You remember what that place was like. It was hell on earth. We were losing men every day to IEDs, snipers, ambushes. SEAL Team 3 was running operations in the worst parts of the city, and we were getting hammered. Lisa felt herself pulled back in time. She could smell the dust and smoke, could hear the constant crack of gunfire, could feel the oppressive heat that made it hard to breathe. Riggs continued. Our usual combat surgeon had been rotated out. We got Commander Garrett as his replacement. She showed up at our compound fresh from medical school, barely 30 years old, and we all thought the same thing. This is going to be a disaster. A few men in the room chuckled grimly. They remembered. First day she introduces herself, and I'm thinking, how am I supposed to send my men out knowing our medical support is some doctor who's never seen combat? But she looked me in the eye and said, Master Chief, I'm here to keep your men alive. Tell me what I need to know. Riggs paused, his voice thick with emotion. So I told her about the wounds we were seeing, the trauma patterns, the golden hour for treatment, the fact that we couldn't always medevac in time. She listened to everything, took notes, and then said, then I need to be in the field with you. Wade shifted his weight. Medical personnel going on SEAL operations isn't unprecedented. No, sir, it's not, but what Commander Garrett did was. Riggs looked at Lisa. She didn't just patch guys up at the base, she trained with us, ran PT with us, learned our tactics and our hand signals. She qualified on every weapon we carried. She could keep up on patrol, stay quiet on surveillance, and move through hostile territory without being a liability. Lisa remembered those early days, the suspicious looks from the team. The way they tested her, pushed her, waited for her to fail. She had been determined not to give them the satisfaction. 3 weeks into her deployment, Riggs said, we got hit during a raid, ambush in a residential area, 4 men down in the first 30 seconds. I took shrapnel to the leg, couldn't walk. We were pinned down, taking fire from 3 directions, and our extract was 10 minutes out. The room was completely silent now. These men knew what 10 minutes felt like in a firefight. It felt like eternity. Commander Garrett was 20 yards back, relatively safe position behind a wall. She could have stayed there, waited for us to get to her. Nobody would have blamed her. Riggs's voice cracked slightly. Instead, she grabbed her medical bag and ran straight into the kill zone. Lisa closed her eyes, remembering the fear that had threatened to paralyze her, the conscious decision to move anyway, the sound of bullets hitting the wall beside her head. She reached me first, Riggs said. Started treating my leg while rounds were still coming in. I told her to leave me, get to cover. She looked at me like I was crazy and said, not how this works, Master Chief. Then she moved to the next man, then the next, all while under fire. Riggs turned to face Wade directly. She stabilized 4 critically wounded SEALs in the middle of a firefight, sir. And when our extract arrived, she helped load each man before getting on the bird herself. She had taken shrapnel to her arm and didn't even mention it until we were airborne. One of the other men in the room spoke up. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, now a commander. Sir, I was one of the men she saved that day. I had a severed femoral artery. I would have bled out in 3 minutes. Doc Garrett stopped the bleeding while bullets were literally kicking up dirt around us. She saved my life. Another man raised his hand. She saved mine too, sir. Different operation, but same story. She didn't hesitate, didn't hide. She did her job like a damn warrior. Voices started overlapping around the room, men sharing their own stories of Commander Garrett's courage under fire. The time she performed emergency surgery in a contested compound. The time she talked a severely wounded SEAL through his own treatment while she was trapped 50 yards away. The time she held off insurgents with an M4 rifle while protecting wounded men. Wade listened to it all, his expression unreadable. When the room finally quieted, he looked at Lisa. How many deployments did you do with the teams? 7, sir, all combat zones, total of 5 years in theater. And your injuries? 3 Purple Hearts, sir. Shrapnel wounds, gunshot wound to the shoulder, blast injuries from an IED. Wade was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at the trident in Lisa's hand. Who made the decision to give you that? Riggs answered. We did, sir, the entire platoon. After our 3rd deployment together, we took a vote. It was unanimous. We wanted to recognize that Commander Garrett had earned her place among us. She had proven herself in every way that matters. The trident is specifically for Bud-S graduates, Wade said, but his voice had lost its hard edge. We know that, sir, Riggs said. That's why we had a special one made. It's not an official warfare insignia. She doesn't wear it on her uniform. It's a personal recognition from the men whose lives she saved. Wade studied Lisa carefully. She could see him reassessing, recalculating. Commander Garrett, why did you leave Special Operations Medicine? It was the question Lisa had been dreading. The answer was complicated and painful. I didn't leave voluntarily, sir. I was forced out. Wade's eyebrows rose. Explain. Lisa took a breath. This was the part of the story she hated telling. In 2013, I was on my 7th deployment, Afghanistan, Helmand Province. We were supporting a high-priority operation when things went wrong. We had multiple casualties, including civilians caught in the crossfire. I was treating everyone I could, SEAL and civilian alike. She paused, the memory still sharp after all these years. There was a young girl, maybe 8 years old. She had severe blast injuries. I was working on her when I got a direct order from the mission commander to stop. He said we needed to extract immediately, and we couldn't take her with us. The room was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence, heavy with understanding. I refused the order, Lisa said quietly. I stayed with that girl until I stabilized her enough for local medical to take over. We missed our primary extraction window. The team had to fight their way to a secondary pickup point. 3 men were wounded because of the delay. You disobeyed a direct order in combat, Wade said. Yes, sir, I did. What happened to the girl? She lived, sir. Last I heard, she was 13 and healthy. Wade nodded slowly. And what happened to you? I was removed from combat operations, investigated for insubordination. The formal charges were dropped, but my career with special operations was over. I was reassigned to hospital duty stateside. Lisa met Wade's eyes. I don't regret my choice, sir. I became a doctor to save lives, not to decide which ones are worth saving. For the first time since the confrontation began, Wade's expression softened. Commander, I need to ask you something directly. Why are you really here tonight? Lisa looked around the room at the faces of men she had served with, men who had become family. Because Master Chief Riggs invited me, sir. Because this year marks the 20-year anniversary of the Ramadi deployment. Because 8 of the men I served with didn't make it home, and I wanted to honor their memory. Her voice dropped. And because for 7 years these men treated me like I belonged, when the rest of the world told me I didn't. Wade was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to Riggs. Master Chief, is everything she said accurate? Every word, sir. Wade looked around the room. And the rest of you agree that Commander Garrett earned her place here? The response was immediate and unanimous. Yes, sir. Wade turned back to Lisa. He stood at attention and extended his hand. Commander Garrett, I owe you an apology. Lisa hesitated for just a moment before shaking General Wade's hand. His grip was firm, and when she met his eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected, genuine respect. I made assumptions based on incomplete information, Wade said. That was wrong. I apologize, Commander. Apology accepted, sir, Lisa said quietly. Wade released her hand but didn't step away. However, I want to be clear about something. What you did, disobeying a direct order in combat, that's serious. Very serious. I assume you understand that. I do, sir. But I also understand the position you were in, the impossible choice. Wade glanced at Riggs, then back to Lisa. I've read reports about that operation. The official version says the civilian casualties were minimal and all received appropriate care. I'm guessing that's only true because of your actions. Lisa didn't respond. She had learned long ago that some truths didn't need to be spoken aloud. Wade seemed to understand. He nodded slowly. I'd like to hear more about your current assignment. You said you're doing hospital duty. Yes, sir. I'm Chief of Trauma Surgery at Naval Medical Center, San Diego. How long have you been there? 11 years, sir. 11 years, Wade repeated. That's a long time in one posting. Have you requested transfer? Lisa felt the familiar knot in her stomach. This was dangerous territory. Several times, sir, the requests have been denied. On what grounds? The official reason is that my skills are needed at the medical center. The unofficial reason, Lisa paused, choosing her words carefully. The unofficial reason is that certain people in the chain of command believe I'm a liability in operational environments. Wade's jaw tightened, because of the incident in Helmand Province. Yes, sir. Who blocked your transfer requests? Lisa hesitated. She had spent 11 years being careful not to make waves, not to cause problems. She had accepted her exile quietly because fighting it seemed pointless. But standing here now, with Wade actually listening, she felt something stir inside her. Maybe it was time to stop being quiet. Admiral Richard Corrigan was the primary obstacle, sir. He was the mission commander during the Helmand operation, the one who gave the order I disobeyed. Wade's expression darkened. Admiral Corrigan is retiring next month. I'm aware, sir. Are you also aware that he's being considered for a position as a defense contractor, advising on special operations medical protocols? Lisa felt her stomach drop. She hadn't known that. The idea of Corrigan influencing medical policy, making decisions about when to save lives and when to leave them behind, made her physically ill. I wasn't aware, sir, she managed to say. Wade pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. What are your current qualifications beyond trauma surgery? I'm board certified in emergency medicine and critical care. I have advanced training in tactical combat casualty care. I've published 17 papers on battlefield medicine, and I recently completed a certification in aerospace medicine. Aerospace medicine? Wade's eyebrows rose. Why? Lisa shrugged. I had time, and I was interested in how the human body responds to extreme environments. Wade typed more notes into his phone. Commander, I'm going to be direct with you. I came into this position 3 months ago with a mandate to modernize naval special warfare. That includes our medical support structure. We're losing too many good people to preventable injuries. Our medical protocols haven't been updated in a decade, and frankly, we need people who understand both the medical side and the operational side. Lisa's heart started to beat faster. She forced herself not to hope. Hope led to disappointment. I've been looking for someone to head up a new program, Wade continued. Advanced tactical medical support. It would involve training a new generation of combat medics specifically for special operations, developing new protocols, working directly with SEAL teams, special boat teams, and other NSW units. He paused. It would also involve deploying to combat zones as needed to test and refine the protocols. The room was silent. Everyone was listening now. Is that an offer, sir? Lisa asked carefully. It's a possibility, but I need to know something first. Wade's eyes were sharp. If you were in the same situation again, a direct order to abandon a patient for operational necessity, what would you do? It was a trap. It had to be. If she said she'd obey orders, she'd be lying. If she said she'd disobey again, she'd be admitting she couldn't follow the chain of command. Lisa looked around the room. She saw Riggs watching her, his expression unreadable. She saw the faces of men she'd served with, men whose lives she'd saved. She saw younger officers she didn't know, watching to see what she would say. She looked back at Wade. Sir, I can't promise I'd follow an order I believed was morally wrong. I became a doctor because I believe in the sanctity of human life. All human life, not just American lives, not just military lives. She stood straighter. But I can promise that I would do everything in my power to find a solution that didn't require disobeying orders. I would fight for better protocols, better training, better equipment. I would work to make sure no one else was put in that impossible position. Wade studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, actually smiled. That's exactly the answer I was hoping for. Sir, Commander, the military needs people who follow orders, but it also needs people who have the moral courage to question bad orders, who will fight to make things better. Wade slipped his phone back into his pocket. The situation you faced in Helmand Province wasn't your failure. It was a systemic failure. The protocols failed you. The command structure failed you. And then, instead of fixing the system, we punished you for exposing its flaws. Lisa felt tears threatening and blinked them back hard. She had spent 11 years believing she had done something wrong, believing she deserved her exile. "I want to offer you the position," Wade said. "Head of Advanced Tactical Medical Support with the rank of captain. You'd report directly to my office. You'd have the authority to develop new protocols and the resources to implement them. And you'd have my full support." Lisa opened her mouth but couldn't find words. Riggs stepped forward. "Sir, if I may, I think you just broke her." The room erupted in laughter, breaking the tension. Lisa felt herself smile despite the tears in her eyes. "I don't know what to say, sir," she finally managed. "Say yes," Wade said simply. "The Navy needs you, Commander. The teams need you. And frankly, you've earned this opportunity about 1,000 times over." Lisa took a deep breath. "Then yes, sir, absolutely yes." The room broke into applause. Men stepped forward to shake her hand, clap her on the shoulder, welcome her back. It was overwhelming and emotional, and exactly what she had needed for 11 years. But as the celebration continued, Lisa noticed something. Near the back of the room, a man she didn't recognize was on his phone, speaking urgently. He looked agitated. When he ended the call, he pushed through the crowd toward Wade. "General Wade, sir. I'm Commander Price, your aide. I just received a call from Admiral Corrigan's office. He's heard about the situation here and is demanding to speak with you immediately." Wade's expression hardened. "I'm in the middle of an event, Commander." "Sir, he was very insistent. He said this concerns Commander Garrett and potential misuse of authority." The room went quiet again. Lisa felt the joy of moments ago evaporate. Of course Corrigan had heard. Of course he would try to stop this. He had spent 11 years making sure she stayed buried. He wouldn't let Wade undo that without a fight. Wade looked at Lisa, then at Price. "Tell Admiral Corrigan I'll call him tomorrow during normal business hours." "Sir," he said. "I don't care what he said, Commander." Wade's voice was steel. "I'm at a reunion event honoring some of the finest warriors this nation has produced. That takes priority over a phone call from a retiring admiral who has a personal grudge." Price looked uncomfortable. "Sir, with respect, Admiral Corrigan still has significant influence if he makes this a priority." "Then let him," Wade interrupted. "I've made my decision regarding Commander Garrett based on her qualifications and service record. If Admiral Corrigan has concerns, he can submit them through proper channels." Wade paused. "Is there anything else, Commander?" "No, sir." "Then we're done here." Price retreated, but Lisa could see the worry on his face, and she understood why. Wade was new to his position. Corrigan had decades of connections throughout the Navy and the defense establishment. If he wanted to make trouble, he could. Wade turned to Lisa. "Commander Garrett, I want you to understand something. Admiral Corrigan is going to fight this appointment. He's going to use every connection he has to block it. Things might get ugly." "I understand, sir." "Do you? Because this won't just affect you. It might affect me too. It might affect this entire command." Wade's expression was serious. "I'm willing to take that fight, but I need to know you are too." Lisa thought about the past 11 years. The exile, the quiet punishment, the slow death of her career. She thought about the 8-year-old girl in Helmand Province who was alive because Lisa had refused to abandon her. She thought about all the future 8-year-olds who might need someone to fight for them. "I'm ready, sir," she said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Wade nodded. "Good, because tomorrow we go to war." The morning sun was barely up when Lisa arrived at Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. She had barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. General Wade had told her to report at 0600 hours. She was there at 0545. Commander Price met her at the entrance. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "Commander Garrett, the general is waiting for you. Conference Room B." Lisa followed him through the corridors. The building was quiet at this hour, but she could feel the tension in the air. Something was happening. Wade was in the conference room with 3 other people. 2 were officers Lisa didn't recognize. The third made her stomach clench. Admiral Richard Corrigan stood at the far end of the table. He was in his early 60s, tall and lean with sharp features and cold eyes. Lisa hadn't seen him in 11 years, but he hadn't changed much. He still had that air of absolute certainty, the confidence of a man who had never faced real consequences for his actions. "Commander Garrett," Wade said, "thank you for coming early. I believe you know Admiral Corrigan." "Yes, sir," Lisa said carefully. Corrigan looked at her with barely concealed contempt. Commander, I'd say it's good to see you, but we both know that would be a lie. Wade's voice cut in before Lisa could respond. Admiral Corrigan arrived an hour ago. He's made some serious allegations that I need to address before we proceed with your appointment. Lisa's heart sank. What kind of allegations, sir? Corrigan answered. I've informed General Wade that you have a history of insubordination, poor judgment under pressure, and a dangerous tendency to prioritize personal feelings over military objectives. I've also told him that you were removed from special operations for cause, not because of any conspiracy or vendetta. That's not true, Lisa said, keeping her voice level. Isn't it? You disobeyed a direct order in combat. You endangered an entire SEAL team because you couldn't make the hard choice. You put American lives at risk for an enemy civilian. Corrigan's voice was sharp. And now you want to be put in charge of training the next generation. It's absurd. Wade held up a hand. Admiral Corrigan, you've made your position clear. Now I'd like to review the facts. He opened a folder on the table. I spent last night reading every report from the Helmand Province operation, the official after-action report, the investigation into Commander Garrett's actions, and some additional documents that weren't part of the official record. Corrigan's expression tightened slightly. What additional documents? Sworn statements from every member of the SEAL team present during the operation. I had my staff contact them last night. Wade pulled out several pages. Every single one of them contradicts your version of events. Those men are biased. They have personal relationships with Garrett. Perhaps, but their statements are consistent and detailed. They all say the same thing. The civilian casualties on that operation were far more extensive than the official report indicated. The girl Commander Garrett treated wasn't an isolated case. There were multiple wounded civilians, including children. Wade looked directly at Corrigan. And according to these statements, you ordered the team to leave all of them behind without medical treatment. The room went silent. Corrigan's face flushed red. That's a lie. Those men are lying to protect her. Are they? Because I also found something else. Wade pulled out another document. A classified report from an embedded CIA officer who was on that operation. His report confirms everything the SEALs said. He also noted that the civilian casualties were caused by faulty intelligence that your office provided. Lisa felt her breath catch. She had never known about a CIA report. Wade continued, his voice cold and precise. The intelligence said the compound was enemy combatants only. It was actually being used as a civilian shelter. When the team breached, they found 37 people, mostly women and children. The firefight that followed resulted in 12 civilian casualties. Commander Garrett tried to treat all of them. You ordered her to stop and extract immediately. Because the tactical situation required it, Corrigan said, but his voice had lost its certainty. We were in enemy territory. Every second we stayed increased the risk to our forces. That's true, Wade acknowledged. But according to the CIA report, you also knew that leaving those wounded civilians would create a propaganda nightmare. So you altered the after-action report to minimize the civilian casualties. You made it look like Commander Garrett overreacted to a minor incident instead of responding to a massacre. Corrigan's face had gone from red to pale. That report is classified. You had no authority. I have every authority, Wade cut him off. I'm the commander of Naval Special Warfare. I have full clearance to review any and all operations involving my personnel. And what I found is a pattern of you falsifying reports, intimidating witnesses, and destroying the career of an officer who threatened to expose your mistakes. One of the other officers in the room spoke up. It was a woman in Navy JAG uniform. Captain Sarah Chen, according to her nameplate. Admiral Corrigan, I'm here in an official capacity to inform you that the Judge Advocate General's office is opening a formal investigation into your conduct during the Helmand Province operation and subsequent cover-up. Corrigan looked like he'd been slapped. This is ridiculous. You're destroying my reputation based on 11-year-old allegations because this woman has more courage and integrity than you've shown in your entire career, Wade said, his voice like iron. Commander Garrett risked everything to save innocent lives. She stood up for what was right even when it cost her career, while you've spent 11 years covering your ass and making sure nobody discovered your mistakes. Lisa stood frozen, barely able to process what was happening. 11 years of believing she was the one in the wrong. 11 years of exile and punishment. And now, in the space of 12 hours, the truth was coming out. Captain Chen addressed Corrigan again. Sir, I'm also here to inform you that the investigation may result in criminal charges, including falsifying official reports, obstruction of justice, and conduct unbecoming an officer. I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel. Corrigan looked around the room, searching for support and finding none. Finally, his eyes settled on Lisa. You did this. You've been working behind the scenes for years, haven't you? Building your case against me, getting your SEAL friends to lie for you. No, sir, Lisa said quietly. Until last night, I didn't even know there was a CIA report. I didn't know the SEALs had made statements. I didn't know any of this. She paused. I just did my job and accepted the consequences. You're the one who turned it into something more. Corrigan stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked out of the room without another word. After he left, Lisa sat down heavily. Her legs felt weak. Captain Chen excused herself, saying she had work to do on the investigation. The other officers followed, leaving Lisa alone with General Wade. Are you all right, Commander? Wade asked. I don't know, sir. This doesn't feel real. Wade sat down across from her. I'm sorry you had to go through that, and I'm sorry it took 11 years for the truth to come out. How did you find all of this so quickly? When I took this command, I made it my business to review any controversial incidents in NSW history. The Helmand operation was flagged as having inconsistencies in the reports. I started asking questions. Wade leaned back in his chair. Then last night, after hearing your story, I made some calls, people I trust, people who were willing to go on record. The pieces came together quickly once people knew someone was finally listening. Lisa felt tears starting again. I thought I was alone. I thought everyone believed Corrigan's version. The men you served with never believed it. They knew the truth. But Corrigan had the power to silence them. Official channels went nowhere. They had to choose between their careers and supporting you. It's not fair, but it's reality. What happens now? Wade smiled. Now you get to work. The appointment stands. You're the new head of Advanced Tactical Medical Support, effective immediately. You have your promotion to captain, and you have carte blanche to fix everything that's broken in our medical protocols. What about Corrigan? Let Jag handle Corrigan. That's not your concern anymore. Wade stood up. Your concern is building something better, making sure no one else faces the impossible choice you faced, making sure we save every life we can, not just the ones that are convenient. Lisa stood as well. Thank you, sir, for believing me, for fighting for me. I didn't fight for you, Captain. I fought for what's right. There's a difference. Wade extended his hand. Now go make me look smart for hearing you. Lisa shook his hand, and for the first time in 11 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Over the next 6 months, Lisa threw herself into her new role. She assembled a team of the best combat medics and trauma surgeons in the Navy. She reviewed every medical protocol, questioned every assumption, and rebuilt the system from the ground up. She created new training programs that emphasized adaptability and moral courage. She developed protocols for treating civilian casualties that balanced operational security with humanitarian obligations. She pushed for better equipment, better training, and better support for medical personnel in the field. And she deployed, back to combat zones, working alongside SEAL teams again, testing her protocols in real conditions, proving that they worked. The investigation into Admiral Corrigan concluded with his retirement being revoked and a reduction in rank. He avoided criminal charges through a plea agreement, but his reputation was destroyed. His consulting job disappeared. His legacy was permanently tarnished. Lisa didn't celebrate his downfall. She had no interest in revenge. She was too busy building the future. 1 year after that reunion at Coronado, Lisa stood in the same officers' club, but this time was different. This time, she was the guest of honor. General Wade stood at the front of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to present the Navy Cross to Captain Lisa Garrett for her actions during combat operations in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Her extraordinary heroism and disregard for her own safety in treating wounded personnel under fire exemplify the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. The room erupted in applause as Wade pinned the medal to Lisa's uniform. It was her second Navy Cross. She was one of only a handful of people to receive two. But what meant more to Lisa than the medal was what came next. Wade stepped back and Master Chief Riggs stepped forward. He was holding a small box. "Captain Garrett, on behalf of Naval Special Warfare Command, I'm authorized to present you with this." He opened the box. Inside was a gold trident pin, the official seal trident. Lisa stared at it in shock. "Master Chief, I didn't go through Bud S. I'm not." "No, you didn't go through Bud S.," Riggs interrupted. "But General Wade and the command staff reviewed your record. 7 combat deployments with SEAL teams, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Navy Crosses, multiple Bronze Stars. You've met every qualification except the formal training. And in recognition of your service and sacrifice, the command has authorized an honorary warfare designation." Tears streamed down Lisa's face as Riggs pinned the trident to her uniform next to her Navy Cross medals. "You earned this," he said quietly. "You've always earned this." The room erupted again. SEALs past and present stood and applauded. These men who rarely showed emotion were wiping their own eyes. Lisa looked around the room and saw the faces of the men she had served with, the men she had saved, the men who had saved her in return. And she saw something else, young women in uniform watching her with hope in their eyes, the next generation who would have an easier path because she had fought for them. General Wade raised his glass. "To Captain Garrett, a warrior, a healer, and proof that the only impossible missions are the ones we refuse to attempt." "To Captain Garrett," the room echoed. Lisa touched the trident on her chest. The one Master Chief Riggs had given her years ago had been an unofficial recognition from the men she served with. This one was official, sanctioned by the Navy itself. But in her heart, they meant the same thing. She had earned her place, not through politics or connections or special treatment, but through blood and sacrifice and refusing to quit when everyone said she should. She had proven that impossible was just another word for not yet. And she had shown that the sign reading, "SEALs only," wasn't about gender or paperwork or formal qualifications. It was about heart, about courage, about being willing to run into the fire when everyone else was running away. Lisa Garrett had that heart. And now, finally, everyone knew it. The general who had told her she didn't belong had become her biggest advocate. The admiral who had tried to destroy her career was disgraced. The system that had punished her for doing the right thing had been reformed. But more importantly, the young women watching her tonight would grow up knowing that the path was open, that they could serve, that they could fight, that they could earn the trident through courage and skill. Lisa raised her own glass to them, those future warriors she would never meet. "To the next impossible mission," she said quietly, "because there would always be another one. And she would be ready."